Professor Stephen Leeder is Editor-in-Chief of the Medical Journal of Australia, and today he's talking with us about our infectious diseases issue, which comes out on the 16th of March. Hello, Stephen.
Hi there, Kate.
How are you?
Thank you.
Good. A few weeks ago, we were having an email discussion about peanut allergies or something like that.
That's right.
And you basically said to us to trust the biome. and in this issue, you've written about the microbiome. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, it's a very interesting insight that we've gained in the last, I suppose, 20 years, maybe more recently, into the fact that we have on us and inside us more micro entities than we do cells in our body, by a factor of 10. In other words, the flora that lives in our gut, lives on our skin, in our conjunctiva, and other body surfaces is a big passenger, and 10 times as many cells. And we're learning, I think, a lot about the value and function of that what we might call an organ, because it's a very organised entity. We've known about gut flora for a long time, and their value in securing a gut that doesn't fall prey to every pathogen that comes along, because there's already a population of organisms living there.
Yeah.
But increasingly, I think we've come to view it positively, so that serious disruptions to the biome that might follow from surgery or an immunological disorder or treatment with heavy antibiotics is seen to be a health hazard in its own right. So people are looking at ways, some of them not very aesthetic, like fecal transfusions to replenish the normal gut flora in people in whom it's been disrupted. But the point in relation to peanuts is that the more we know about the microbiome, the more important it seems to be in stopping people developing all sorts of allergies. And we've known, for example, in Papua New Guineans that their guts are often heavily infested with parasites, not with bacteria, appear to be associated with a lower rate of development of asthma. And that has flowed on to a lot of research about early childhood exposure to infections that might actually prime the immunological capability in some way to resist the development of allergic diseases. So I mean, it sounds complicated, and it is, but it's the upside of living in a world that's populated with microorganisms. And of course we know about the pathogens, we know about viruses such as HIV and so forth that cause all these devastating problems, and they're well canvassed in this particular issue, which is an update on how things are going with infectious disease. But we need from time to time to remember that not all of these bugs and things are our enemies, some of them are our friends.
We talk a little bit about antimicrobial resistance as well, don't we?
That's true, and increasingly, of course, we're aware of the fact that that organisms can develop a resistance to classical antimicrobial agents, and there are various ways that people are thinking about handling this. There's been a resurgent interest in what's called phage therapy, which is an alternative to the use of antibiotics, whereby you introduce these other organisms that in turn deal with the bacteria. But from the medical practice point of view, I think it's fairly safe to say that the less we use antibiotics for anything other than causes, the problems that we know will respond to them, the better for the environment. It's a bit like carbon, don't go overusing antibiotics, don't go generating more carbon than is absolutely essential. because if you keep on doing these things, they'll come back and bite you.
What have we learned from Ebola? That seems to have been quite positive, some of the outcomes from the epidemic this year.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's sort of fallen off the radar somewhat.
Yes.
And we've had Sierra Leone, which is where it all started, a really shockingly chewed up country after 10 years of civil war. Ghastly things that have gone on there. And I think with the rebuilding of some of the infrastructure of those devastated West African countries where this was rife, we've seen sort of the lid put on the epidemic. But it's a very good reminder that we're not far away on any day from an epidemic, and a lot of this protection that we talk about depends on having countries that have a fairly stable, basic social infrastructure.
Yeah.
And 45% of the population in Sierra Leone live below the poverty line. Well, I mean, and all the hospitals and things got smashed up in the Civil War. And so Ebola comes along and says, this looks like good territory. But it's another good reason why we should have a broad view of the environment in which we live and take into account that it's a very good point to helping countries dig themselves out of poverty if we can.
Yep.
But for their sake, but there's also a sake for us. And when you look at where things like HIV and SARS and Ebola and everything come from, it's nearly always been that they've originated in places where they've been socially disrupted. So there's a selfish point to foreign aid.
Yeah. Well, it's another packed issue. I mean, infectious diseases is always one of our more popular issues, so it's got plenty on offer.
Indeed so.
Terrific. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Kate.